You are a human being on Earth, which means you've probably seen an image that looks kind of like this. This is what the kids are calling an iceberg, because it's a fucking iceberg. Either way, this format is beginning to grow in popularity very, very quickly as a way to talk about increasingly niche or difficult aspects of already pre-established cultures. You know how there's like top 10 videos? Well, it's kind of like a top 10 video, but things escalate and get worse. So there's a video going around by a YouTuber named Wendigoon, which is about the disturbing movies iceberg, which is basically this horrifying thing, it's this thing here, that someone made because they hate me in specific, and want me to suffer. So I watched through a few of Wendigoon's videos, and while Wendigoon is very willing to go to the dark places, and I appreciate that about Wendigoon, I also am very aware that Wendigoon seems to have not seen a lot of the worst stuff. He seems to have protected himself from these horrible things. So while I was sitting there watching his video, I was thinking, geez, it would be really great if someone made this video that was like, you know, like a psychopath, like myself. So I did say very clearly, outwardly, that I would no longer be talking about fucked up movies on YouTube.
Oh no, my brains.
But oh boy, this right here is something that I just feel like I have a unique place on the internet to talk about, because I know everything about this shit. Now, this might be broken up into multiple parts because it's gonna take a while to explain, and also, while other people are not so willing to put their channel at risk by putting like clips and graphic depictions of the things in the films in the videos, I'll do it. I sure will. Now, also, I'm gonna quickly address that the bottom of the list has some things in it that no one should have seen, many of which are illegal. So if you're looking to see the things at the bottom of the list, might I recommend don't doing that. Try to not do it. If you cannot, that would be fantastic. So today, we are going to begin the Herculean task of analyzing the disturbing movies Iceberg, adding my own film choices to it that are not on there, because I know about a lot of things that just didn't end up here. What a shame. I can fill in those gaps. I hate that I have to preface this so much, but hear me out here. Warning on content. Some of this stuff is like stuff you can't unthink about, but I'm okay. So, you know,
Oh no, my brains.
believe in yourself. Know your own limits. I believe that people can handle this information. I am also a psychopath. Alright, so now I'm getting really serious. This is your last fucking chance. This stuff here is super bad. There's this book called The Conspiracy Against the Human Race by Thomas Ligotti, and it's about how consciousness itself is evil and is trying to kill us from the inside. And if there's anything I've ever seen that is demonstrable proof that that's true, it's this fucking iceberg. You have now been really warned. Alright, so let's take a look at this son of a bitch. Let's see what we got. So the first rung of the iceberg is admittedly, I don't even know. I feel like the early Iceberg stuff is always like, do you like horror movies? Well, here's some general horror movies that you might like. And if you want to go crazier from there, you go crazier from there. But so if it ends crazy, it has to start normal. So unfortunately, these are like the really, really normal movies. Friday the 13th. Prior to Jason, as everybody knows, Jason's mother killed a lot of people in the first perspective, and they were mostly having sex, and that was documented in the feature film Friday the 13th. It's not that great. I don't really like it all that much. I think there are better things on the list. Child's Play. Okay, genuinely, I don't even understand how this qualifies as a disturbing movie. If you were to call this a disturbing movie, you would have to have smoked some crack. Basically, a doll comes alive and becomes a Chucky. This is the Chucky. It's so simple. A killer doll movie. You know, it's scary, I guess, if you're a child. You know, I forget sometimes that some people watch these movies and are genuinely scared of everything. Like any horror movie, like any inch, it bothers them. So this list truly, and also I guess my YouTube channel in general is just based. It's like a gift given to the people in the world that's not enough for them. You got to have a lot crazier shit for me than that. Scream is directed by Wes Craven. It's actually kind of hilarious. I think Matthew Lillard a tad far. But I love that he goes a tad far. He goes like way too far, to be honest. It's so 90s and it's also so meta-referential. I don't even know if I love a lot of the messaging, but I have seen it many times and it is not scary. Insidious. Okay, so this is directed by James Wan. It's like the movie that was like a big deal that he made after Saw. Well, he also made Dead Silence. But a lot of people want to forget about that. A lot of people like that movie. I don't know. It depends on how much you like puppets. Speaking of puppets, there's a lot of fucking puppets in Insidious. Insidious is... to be honest with you, it's more of a throwback William Castle movie than anything. It's almost making fun of the genre that it's in. I think that's kind of James Cameron... I did it. I did the fucking thing. I said James Cameron instead of James Wan. Fuck me. I think the thing that James Wan is like mostly known for is kind of taking the horror genre and turning it into a small, weird nuclear weapon. What I would call is like the Fast and Furiousing of horror movies. There's not a lot of subtlety in Insidious. It's just kind of an aggressive haunted house movie. And speaking of aggressive haunted house movies, we've got The Conjuring, which is another aggressive haunted house movie. Perhaps religious propaganda? When are people gonna have that conversation? Listen, we all stand Ed and Lorraine Warren, but, like, I have a feeling deep in me, somewhere, that maybe they had a bad take about something. Annabelle. Alright, so clearly the person who made this list saw the Conjuring universe and was like, this is the kind of horror movies that, like, normies watch. I can't imagine normies really vibing with Annabelle, really. I mean, Annabelle is the offshoot of The Conjuring that I don't know if I guess it was successful. Nothing in Annabelle is even close to what's in Insidious or The Conjuring, and it's not directed by James Wan, and it's very noticeable. To be honest with you, I don't even know why this movie is on this list. It's a bad movie. The second one's okay, but that first one it's stinky. The Grudge. Okay, so when I was a child, I will admit that this was the first movie I ever saw that made me feel like I was hopeless and going to die alone. Which is great. I mean, I think every child is looking for that experience, right? That's why we're here. That's why we're on this YouTube channel, to experience that. So I saw The Grudge with my sister in a theater when I was like 12 years old or 13. Fucked me up. Oh my god, the ghosts in it are genuinely pretty fucking horrifying, even still. So earlier I said that James Wan kind of ushered in this Fast and Furiousing of horror movies. I do kind of think it started with Sam Raimi's influence on the Ji-Wan remake, which is The Grudge. I feel like Ji-Wan is very subtle. The Grudge is very aggressive. Is that Sam Raimi influence? Perhaps. Who knows? All I know is I think this is part of why horror movies are like this now. Why we all have to go back for a harder and harder hit every time for the exact same feeling. The Ring. Okay, so The Ring is just a genuinely good movie. Like, it's very subtle. It's Gore Verbinski. It's a remake of Ringu, which I pronounced badly because I am from Texas. The Ring is pretty sweet. I actually love Naomi Watts in that movie. I just like Naomi Watts in general. She's just a good lady. But also, there's that scene where the horse thing happens, and that shit sucks. The reason this is on this list is most people have a big old problem with this. The fucking closet thing, people don't like that. People don't like the when the guy turns around, his face all fucked. They don't like that the face gets fucked up. People don't like it when their faces get fucked up. But I got terrible news for you, sister. Everybody's face is gonna get fucked up with time. Do you think the dirt is gonna spare your beautiful face? Okay, so I put these on as a joke. The joke is over. A Nightmare on Elm Street. So it's not that freaky of a thing. Like, I even feel like it's insulting to call this normie, but I also feel like it's not insulting to call this normie. I guess a lot of people watch A Nightmare on Elm Street and think that it's really rad and sweet and they like it. But I remember when I was a kid, I always thought that it was silly. Like, it was silly when he had the big arms, and it was silly when he cut off his own fingers. I thought that was kind of cute, honestly. I was like, oh. And then there's that, I'm your boyfriend now, Nancy. Like, not super disturbing. I wasn't bothered. I was laughing as a child. So that is tier 1. Pretty simple. Nothing too horrible. But oh boy. It gets worse now, doesn't it? See how many we can cram into one video. Okay, so tier 2 is for, like, people who watch horror movies and they like them. And they've got, like, somewhat of a mature level of taste. This is where, like, one of the comfort zones lies. Like, you're not entirely a normie, but you're also not an asshole yet. You're not an elitist like me. Excuse me, I only am scared by movies that have vomiting in them. We'll get to that. The only thing that fucks me up is Genki, okay? So the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Okay, I actually stan this movie and think that it is fairly disturbing. Tobe Hooper once said that he was filming a guy as he died once, and the footage, like when he watched it back, made him feel ill because he felt like it was truly capturing that like unnerving thing that we don't talk about but we're all experiencing, and it was just horrible. And he was like, damn, I gotta make a fucking movie about that shit. And that's why we have the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So thank you, anonymous man who died so Tobe Hooper could feel motivated enough to get off his ass and make us a movie. In the Texas heat, a bunch of, like, literal nightmare people got together in Texas and made this. And to be honest, most of the movie is fairly bloodless. There's a lot of bones and shit. There's a lot of macabre stuff, but honestly, I don't think it really, like, clings to the concept of death quite as much as, like, later movies would do. But for the time, it sure was pushing the envelope, I think. I think this one is gonna have to stand the test of time. We're gonna have to stand this one. Also, I agree with Julia Dapper when she says that Leatherface is a queen. The hills have eyes. Okay, so there's actually two good arguments to be made for this. The first is that Wes Craven made a great movie in the 70s that's really fucking edgy, kind of about a conservative family getting the ever-loving fuck killed out of them by a bunch of people that live in the engineering zone where they fucked up the world. Okay, so it's like kind of pseudo-environmentalist, I guess, but for the most part it's just a kind of fucked up movie, and we like that. We genuinely love a good little fucked up movie, but the remake, there's a great argument for that because that movie is genuinely very, very upsetting to watch. Who is the man? Who is the boy? I can't remember his fucking name. He directed High Tension.
High Tension was directed by Alexander Aja.
God! Anyway, Alexander Aja made a really, really fucked up movie too. You should watch that one. That one maybe leans a little bit more into the, oh my god, this is French and violent, where the original is more like, oh, this is American and violent. Saw. Okay, so I'm actually analyzing all of these movies right now, like that's on another editing timeline right now, but the Saw movies, in general, are mostly disturbing for the viscera aspect. Like, people are bothered by the Saw movies because they put people in situations where they have to, like, fuck up their body, and people don't like the concept of disfiguration or, like, having to do something radical to themselves to survive. This bothers them, this idea. It really grabs that part of us that doesn't want to cut off our foot and is like, now you have to cut off your foot. Eat some shit. House of a Thousand Corpses is a film that I've talked about ad nauseum, but it's directed by Rob Zombie, and it's basically kind of a marriage between the Rocky Horror Picture Show, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and the Munsters. And Rob Zombie's even directing the Munsters now, so that's appropriate. Now, House of a Thousand Corpses, I think, is mostly bothersome for a lot of, like, really fucked up gore stuff, and also there is a part where someone wears another person's skin. I can see why people would be bothered by this film. This one, I think, deserves to be on this list. I think a lot of hardcore horror fans are like, yeah, I like pretty edgy movies. I like House of a Thousand Corpses, and it's like, it gets a lot worse than that, sister. It gets a lot fucking worse than that, sister. Hostel. In the 2000s, I don't want to say the term, but the term is torture porn. It's like, a lot of critics were labeling these kinds of movies like this, but it was basically like horror movies that were like touching on that viscera aspect, pushing right past the, oh, it's a scary guy, he's gonna get you, what's he gonna do to you? Here's what he does to you. The movie. And so Hostel is kind of like an extended sequence of seeing a bunch of jocks get their shit ripped up, and that's kind of fun. That's kind of funny. We like that. It's directed by Eli Roth, who would later go on to have a career of mostly fuck, but a couple of kind of alright, you know? He's got a touch for the hatred of humanity in there, and you love that. You want that in your dirty movie. You want that in your sleaze. You want someone to hate you in the very pages of the script. Tusk. It is fucking bizarre that Kevin Smith has a film on here. Kevin Smith, the fucking director of fucking Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, has a movie on the Iceberg with Genki, okay? Tusk is a movie that Kevin Smith made about a walrus man. Well, he wasn't a walrus man to start off. He was Justin Long. He was turned into a walrus man. And oh boy, is that milkable. Is that the most milkable image you've ever seen? Is that the most amazing thing anyone's ever done? Why did you do this, Kevin? And also, why did you make the movie, like, terrible? Like, not only does it have to be a fucked up nightmare movie, it also has to be terrible. The Human Centipede. So The Human Centipede is a movie that I think everybody's memed about. It was kind of like originally memed. I remember back in the day, there was a stand-up comedian named Daniel Tosh. He's probably still around and very problematic man. I don't know what his actual politics are, so don't quote me on this, but I remember very specifically The Human Centipede became a thing because he talked about it on television and just explained the whole plot of it on television. Which is kind of hilarious, given that The Human Centipede is literally a movie that someone made not even all that long ago about someone sewing people ass to mouth so they shit into each other's bodies as some sort of great organism. Now, this is obviously just insanity from start to finish, and any ideology that one would expect from this can be, kiss goodbye. Goodbye, ideology. There's no point possible. Good luck finding one, sister. Good luck fucking finding one. Mostly it's a movie that's about a human centipede and the doctor who loves having a human centipede and likes to walk his human centipede around, just sort of around his yard and beat it with the paper, have it shit on his lawn. He treats it like a fucking dog. It's so... boy. Midsommar. Okay, so fairly recent edition, and I guess Midsommar is one that we're thinking about a lot. I think Hereditary could also easily be thrown into this category. It's not... I'm a casual horror fan. It's I watch horror movies like a lot, and I'm a big fan of horror movies, and these really strike that chord. It's like someone watched like The Shining and was like, I know what to do. So Midsommar is a movie mostly about psychedelic drugs and how psychedelic drugs mixed with like community and things like that can change you. There's this like phenomenon often where like shitty guys will be like, I'm gonna do psychedelics with my girlfriend. I'm gonna shove psychedelics into her and see what happens. And so they make a girl do psychedelics with them, and then the girl, while on psychedelics, has the epiphany realization that her boyfriend is shitty enough to have done that to her, and then she dumps him, therefore blowing up in his face completely. Oops, you gave her the good one that helps people's brain. So Midsommar is kind of a personification of that idea. It's like a guy takes his girlfriend to a place where he mostly just wanted to score. Things go super south, and they do a lot of drugs, and the drugs teach the lady that the boyfriend is pretty bad, and the drugs teach the boyfriend that he should have sex a lot, and then get burned in a bear suit. Good lessons from drugs today. So that concludes Iceberg Part 2 of Tier 2 of the Iceberg. Now, I feel like there are more Okay, so tier 3 is probably the last one we're going to do in this video, but in the next video we will continue with the worst ones, and as we go through the worst ones, we're going to have to kind of explain them. As I said, most of these movies I have seen, but some of them I have not. Some of them I have intentionally avoided my entire life, and I am going to continue avoiding them, but I am going to line out exactly which ones they are. Salo, or 120 Days of Sodom. Oh, look what I have here. It's the 120 Days of Sodom by Marquis de Sade. This is what 120 Days of Sodom is based on, obviously. But Pier Paolo Pasolini basically did a different thing with it, where he tried to apply the atrocities of the Bastille and the French Revolution and all that with World War II atrocities. So you're getting basically Italian fascism in a house torturing young people for the whole movie. The whole idea is that it is a forever document of the horrible things that people did in Italy, and the people that did those things in Italy at the time when this movie was made were still walking the streets. They were still out there. Many of them were not prosecuted for the atrocities of World War II. In the mind of Pier Paolo Pasolini, you're walking around with these fellows all the time. The old fascists who tortured people a lot. Maybe we should remember this. Maybe this is a good thing for us to remember. So Salo, or 120 Days of Sodom, is an extremely shocking film that explains that in detail. And one might say, wow, what a brave movie to make a movie about your fellow countrymen where you call them out for being awful. And yeah, that is pretty epic. And arguably, that's why the homeboy died. Rest in peace, King. Rest in peace. Martyrs. For the most part, Martyrs, while being one of my favorite movies, is an extremely upsetting, shocking film about a secret society that's trying to get people to nearly die, as close as you could possibly bring someone to the brink of death without them dying, so that you can see if they can visualize the afterlife in sort of a post-death means. So they're trying to determine whether or not there's a god, and I guess that's kind of the way to do it. If you're gonna try and determine if there's a god, I can't think of another way. So this horrible society grabs women out of an orphanage and tortures the shit out of them to the point where they lose all sense of selfhood, they experience an ego death, they experience all that, and to try and get to the nugget of truth. If that sounds like a spicy movie, that's because it's a spicy movie. It is a spicy movie. Ooh, a spicy movie. The Human Centipede 2. Okay, so this one makes it onto this particular tier because it's a lot grosser, and I'm not sure if the tiers are really working with theme here, but my goodness. The Human Centipede 2 is probably one of the grossest movies I've ever seen in my life, and I've seen a lot of shit. It is entirely fake, so that is one benefit going for it. But it is really horrible. So the first movie, is almost like a joke. It's almost they're doing a bit about how gross their concept is. But in the second movie, they take it a lot more seriously. And by taking it seriously, it almost makes a farce of the original idea. So it's almost funnier than the original movie, while also being way worse, way more fucking disgusting, way less redeemable, but also farcical. First is tragedy, then is farce. Pink Flamingos. So Pink Flamingos is a film directed by John Waters, who did so much acid that he got some great movies. And what a king! I actually met John Waters once and he was awesome. So Pink Flamingos is about a drag queen and her family, and they live in a mobile home. They're the most filthy, disgusting, horrible people alive, and they are unchallenged. Until one day they are challenged by a group of people who are performing artificial insemination into kidnapped women to get babies to sell them to lesbian couples as an act of aggression against the government. And that's not even it. Also the man of the family goes out constantly showing his dick to strange women until he accidentally does it to a trans woman, and the trans woman absolutely destroys him. And they both clearly have the worst foot fetish I've ever seen in my life. Genuinely, they make the running for the most horrible people. alive, and they nearly accomplish it. But alas, Divine and her group are just too strong for them. They lick their whole fucking house and then murder them in the woods. Pink Flamingos is great. There's like cannibalism, shit eating, fuck me. Violence, there's an egg lady. There's just a lot of stuff in it that kind of like unnerves you because it pushes some sort of social boundary. Fucking queen shit. A Serbian film is not queen shit. A Serbian film is a movie that I feel like I myself have debated about for nearly a decade. The first time I saw it, I was appalled, but confused enough to be interested to know more about it. The more I learned about it, the more I saw directors' justifications for the horrible things that are done in a Serbian film. And now, as I've grown, the more I've learned that those justifications are kind of dumb. So, a Serbian film is basically a movie that is designed for there to be horrible rapes happen. Some movies are just designed for horrible rapes, and this would be one of those. So a retired porn star is called back into action to get some money because he's hard up. You've never seen that fucking plot before. And then he ends up in over his head with crazy rape scenarios that he has to fulfill. And then he does them. And then they give him drugs when he resists so that he will continue to do them. And then for the remainder of the movie, they force him to do horrible rapes until he realizes that he's literally raped his own family. And then yeah. What do you do? What would you do? Cannibal Holocaust is the best film I've ever seen. Okay, well, so Cannibal Holocaust is kind of really hideously gross for a lot of animal violence, but also it's kind of a rite of passage movie. A lot of people watch this movie and then feel like they've grown up into viscera, like they accept their death slightly more when you watch Cannibal Holocaust. Like you learn a little bit more about how fucked up your own existence is by watching this movie. Also, the movie is just racist as shit. It's just the most racist movie. It's literally about how other cultures are really primitive and will kill you. And yes, cannibalism is a practice in some cultures, but like, is it like this? No. The movie's all about how white people are really dumb, and they go running out into these environments, like, thinking, what do they think is gonna happen? They're gonna film their nice, cute little documentary and not get bit by a snake and piss off local tribes and, like, end up getting themselves fucking killed. So Cannibal Holocaust is kind of a response to some of the movies that are actually later on this list. Jacopetti and Prosperi are two directors that made Mondo Cane, Goodbye Uncle Tom, Africa Addio, and these movies were racist and horrible, and they were exploitative, and they were guised as being journalism. So Cannibal Holocaust is an attempt by Ruggero Deodato to criticize that concept. Maybe the real cannibals aren't the ones that are out in the forest. No. But what if we are the cannibals? Deeply profound shit. Let's move on. The house that Jack built is just a really weird one because, like, I don't find this movie to be particularly disturbing, but I guess I can see why somebody would. It's a Lars von Trier directed movie, which I feel like if you're going to grab any of his movies, I'd put Dancer in the Dark right here. Like, I will explain the house that Jack built, but then I'm going to sell you on Dancer in the Dark. So the house that Jack built is a movie about a serial killer played by Matt Dillon, who discovers that people actually really want to die. It's kind of fun and easy to kill people because everybody just seemingly really wants him to kill them. He is either experiencing this delusion of grandeur or something like that, or he's going through this like downward spiral thing, which of course peaks at a moment where he experiences like Dante's Inferno, falling to his death and burning in hell and all of that. What a time to be alive when this movie exists. When this movie came out, I left a review on my Letterboxd for it that just said, "Smart man make big smart movie." That is very much how it feels. It's kind of like, you know, he's talking through a lot of his like guy issues on the screen while also like doing a lot of skeevy violence shit that makes you question whether or not he himself, the director, probably wants to kill you. Isn't that fun? We like to be killed. So Dancer in the Dark, I'm now going to pitch to you as a better alternative to that. It is a movie starring Bjork, where she was literally tortured by this asshole director to make this movie. She hated making it so much that she said she would never participate in a film again, to which she has gone on to participate in other films by better directors. But Dancer in the Dark is kind of this magical movie in that it is absolutely made by a horrible asshole, like an angry, hateful god, while also being about this beautiful woman with beautiful music inside her that has a beautiful, very American story, immigrates here, tries to save up money to get medical care, and then is fucked over for that money. And it's completely unjustified. You hate it, it's horrible, and it makes you angry, but it's at least purposeful, and at the end of the movie you feel this cold, crippling satisfaction because you go, ah, this is the true American musical. Not any of those other ones. The movie where the immigrant woman, like, literally just gets fucked. Tetsuo the Iron Man. Tetsuo the Iron Man is a movie I watched on a plane, and it has really disgusting viscera noises. It's like a stop motion film that is really skeevy because it gives you the impression of like the psychosis of like what it would be like for your body to just be growing without your knowledge or consent, you know, sort of in the way that our bodies grow without our knowledge or consent. So it's very much like personifying the way that people change, but it does so by making it metal. So people change into different like metallic parts, and sometimes there are benefits to being a metal person, and sometimes there aren't benefits to being a metal person. It's kind of a fascinating movie about the trials and tribulations of becoming a metal person. And when I say metal person, I mean a person made of metal, not this.
According to Wikipedia, Shoujo Tsubaki was a stock protagonist of Kamishibai during its revival in early Showa period Japan, attributed to a creator known as Seiun.
So the big problem with Shouju Tsubaki is that a lot of the really graphic stuff, mostly it's like gore and sex stuff that happens to like kids and young girls, was hand-drawn. Like a whole lot of it was hand-drawn. And I don't really want to deal with it. And I understand if you don't want to deal with it. I mean, I think we've all seen some anime bullshit in our life where we were like, damn, that's some horny anime bullshit. Well, sometimes you don't really need to deal with the anime bullshit that's horny and horrible, so I'm going to pass on Shouju Tsubaki, because I really don't think I need to deal with any underage children shit. That's one of those things where we don't do that. Nope. And the last film on this iceberg is a film called Suicide Club. So Suicide Club mostly just like, people don't like the concept of things promoting suicide, or addressing suicide, or really interrogating the concept, especially with young people. So I feel like the movie really just kind of grips at that and pulls at it, but it isn't quite as horrible as a lot of the other things on this list. I think it's mostly just dealing with teen suicide is a difficult thing, so it ended up on the iceberg. And that is going to do it for Iceberg Part 1.
Oh no, my brains.
I am going to do the other parts, and they're going to get worse, but I don't want to. The more I look at it, I look at this and I just think, geez, fuck. I sure hate this and don't want to do it. Thank you for watching. I hope you liked this video. If you liked this video, please consider giving it a like. Also, I'm going to start doing a lot more videos. I've been working on getting into a position where I can be making things a lot more frequently than I've been making them. My attention, I admit, is somewhat split between like 6 or 7 different art forms all the time. For instance, I just released an album like last month, and I didn't really publicize it all that much, but I did do that. That is a thing you can go enjoy. I am making the process a lot more simple for myself, so I'm going to be doing a lot more stuff like this. I once again apologize for talking about disturbing things, but you know, ultimately horror movies do have a tendency to fall right down that rabbit hole, don't they? It's kind of like how capitalism always has a tendency to run straight towards a Ponzi scheme. Horror movies have a tendency to run straight towards gore porn. And I love that. That's great for me. If you like my videos, consider supporting me on Patreon at like $1 or like a $2 or like maybe a $5, especially if you like supporting my videos and getting them out into your mouth, because I'll feed you with a little spoon. And here's my video, and I'll just put it right in there. Here we go. Thank you all for watching. Bye, good night.